Hello, Terry here, Hot Wrench Fabrication. Coming to you with my next series. It's going to be a big one. I have a Prerunner here, Duramax diesel. It's a 07. He does have all the fenders and all that stuff for it, but you can see it's had a lot of work done to it. Pretty cool design back here. And the problem is the motor's blown, or something's going on with the motor. It actually runs, but it dumps coolant, so it's probably blown head gaskets. But it's kind of a mess. I don't know what's going on with all this stuff here. Got the pinched wire going in here, and just probably lights and stereo stuff, but kind of a poor job. Just draped it over. So we're going to fix all that. Got to kind of figure out what's wrong with it, if we're going to do a new motor or do a just head gaskets on it. But this is the next series, so it's going to be a while. So I will keep you guys informed on what's going on, and thanks for watching. All right, so right off the bat, we got some issues. Everything's leaking. It blew the radiator, which kind of pointed me towards blown head gasket because it overpressurized. But we got some other issues in here. This limiting strap is not short enough. You can see the coil springs are beating up on the control arms. It's only at full droop, but still shouldn't be doing that. But the bad part is over here, it's nice wheelwood brakes. I don't know if they set this up right, or if these pins are worn out, but that's not good. And then if you look right in there, that wheel bearing is completely shot, or at least really loose. And same thing on the other side. It's doing the same thing. This bolt's not even tight. So that caliper's been bouncing around. I don't know what's going on here with this washer, but everything's all wallered out and loose. So I need to build some bushings in there. Make all that nice. And then these rotors are completely shot. This is the level they're supposed to be, and it just takes a big old dive right there. So they're completely junk. And then of course this bearing is loose too. It's hard to pick up, but you can kind of hear it. That's all no bueno. And then we got coolant leaking from here. It's all running down, so I got to figure out where that's coming from. Then apparently, when you open the drain plug and you put water in the reservoir, it runs right out of this plug. Which even with the blown head gasket, it wouldn't run through that fast unless it's just shredded in there. So I got a little bit of work to do. And it's a complete mess. This is zip tied on the cable for the shifter. I'm like, geez, dude, you couldn't even put a cable on this thing. It's like, wow. It's pretty scary stuff that people do and drive around. This is the, oh, my shadow's in the way here, but the, whatchamacallit, the bearing in there is shot, carrier bearing. And back here, we got, it's kind of a neat setup, like I said, but the welds are just atrocious on here. It's got receiver hitch on there, which most people would hook up whatever you can or want to on there. It's a 3/4 ton truck, but the problem is, inside there is a big old gap. It's not welded, and they didn't weld underneath here. This is like 3/16 plate, and actually has a little bow in it. And then that whole section right there is not welded. And you can see the big old Grand Canyon of a gap over here. And another hole. Sorry, my light is getting in the way here. But See a big old hole there. That wasn't welded. And you can see that booger weld right there has no penetration whatsoever, not welded in between there. So I mean, I wouldn't tow a Harbor Freight trailer behind this thing. That all has to be reinforced. You can see that was not welded. So this plate needs to be reinforced or completely replaced. But all of the welds in the whole entire cage back there are pretty much the same way. They're just nasty. No penetration. Probably used a 120 volt MIG welder. So, and then the wiring, there's just wires everywhere hanging down, and all that wiring's got to be gone through. But the bones are there, I suppose. It's kind of a neat setup. It actually looks good when it's all put together. Covers up all the crap. Has real nice wide fenders and everything in there, so that's kind of cool. You know, they left a big old gap right there. That's not welded. So they put this bumper on there and then just over like 16th inch plate on there. And you need to make that stuff strong, because if you need to tow or get towed, you know, people are going to hook up to that. And you're going to end up ripping the bumper right off of there. See that skid plate? Pretty hokey. You couldn't even cut a straight line, so all that needs to be fixed. It's going to be cool when I'm done, though. So starting to take things apart. Looking at the wiring on this. I already cut the lights off, but you see this butt connector here where it has 3 wires going into one. So 3 of the same wires going into 1 of the same size wires. That's bad. This should have been a bigger wire, but this metal, the copper in there, is showing on that one, and definitely showing on that one. That's ready to be grounded out on something and pop a fuse, or if there's no fuse in here, which none of this is fuse protected up to this point. So all that could have melted. You can see this. Oh my gosh, it's just junk of wires. Yeah, this is nice, huh? This whole thing right here, just laying over the top of the motor. And then of course this is a really good ground. A little sheet metal screw. Didn't grind any of the paint off there, so that's lovely. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into a lot of this, but all this is coming off. I figured it'd be easier to work on this thing. Obviously I'm gonna take the tires off and drop it back down, or drop it down quite a bit, but all this is going, taking all this off to build new stuff. So hopefully I can just pull this whole front clip off of here, get this out of the way, and then give me better access to the engine. I still need to do a little diag, but I just want to get stuff out of my way for now. So I did a little big diagnosis, and yeah, this motor's shot. Kind of weird, the overflow that was over here, degas bottle. As soon as you pour water in there, it goes directly right into the engine. Which is crazy. It dumps right out of the drain plug, and it's completely caked in the oil pan full of sludge and stuff. So it's been getting water in there. But I don't know how I can get water in there so fast. So this motor's toast. So it says to take the cab off, and I could do that, but I'm not really into that. So I just took the front end stuff off, which really wasn't that hard. This core support and all this stuff kind of comes apart pretty easily. It's nuts and bolts. So now I have everything here. We're going to get a long block for it. So pretty much everything that's on here has to be transferred. So I can use this as my engine hoist, or not the hoist, but the engine stand, and just start ripping all the accessories off right here. By the time I get this thing down to very minimal, the engine should be able to come out pretty easily. So I didn't show all that because it's just nuts and bolts, and I'm sure there's videos on the YouTube for that kind of stuff if you're into that, but a lot of this is going to be the fabrication and process putting all this back together. So that's where we're at. So update, still working on pulling this thing out. I got quite a bit of it off. Actually trying to get to the turbo, get that pulled out, and just get a lot of this little bracket stuff, all junk pulled out of here that will transfer over to the new engine. So lots of stuff, hoses and crap just going everywhere. It looks kind of weird, looped in there, something's missing. But yeah, all this stuff's got to come off. So we're going to pull this out. This was actually locked up. It won't even turn, so that thing wasn't working. Well, thought it was loose, but it's not. So yeah, plugging away. We'll get her out. She's out. So, I mean, it's just nuts and bolts, but it's a lot of them. Kind of pain in the butt. These wiring and hoses go everywhere, so I got to strip this whole entire thing down. The turbocharger, like I said before, it's completely locked up, can't spin it. So I'm getting ready to take these exhausts off of here, pull the turbo, and just start ripping and tearing. Manifolds off. A lot of this stuff will actually kind of stay together. You know, this stuff is all super hard and brittle. But a lot of this will all kind of come off as one piece, and then when it goes back together, it just lays across there. So it's not horrible, but man, there's a lot of stuff. All this gunk and mess in here. There's so much oil inside there. So yeah, both the motor mounts were completely broken. When I started taking these apart, they just fell apart. So I don't even know how that thing was staying in there. Both motor mounts are sheared. So she's a beater, but we're gonna get it done. So let's start taking all this apart. Still stripping it. She's getting there though. Got all this junk over here. Wiring harness for the engines off. All these tubes, turbo. What a mess. So fuel injection stuff's coming off next. Get these off of here, and the tubes, the rails, pretty much down to the valve cover. Take the exhaust manifolds off, and water pump. And then that's about it. Take it to this guy and have it rebuilt. Alright, she's in the truck. Going down to the engine rebuilders tomorrow. All stripped out and ready to go. What a mess. Alright, so now we're gonna start looking at the brakes. As you can see, the motor is in the truck and ready to be dropped off. These brakes are obviously a mess. I don't know what's going on there. So any of you old timers notice it's got that 4x4 automatic hubs on there, which definitely did not come on an 06 Duramax. These rotors are really small, and they're also kind of beat up. Definitely some more thickness on there though. Right here is the edge where the new rotor is, and then it drops down. Oh my gosh, it's significantly. And the same thing over here. So rotor's going to be a lot thicker new. But the problem is, what is that off of? Old timer like me kind of recognized it. thought it was off an old Chevy, like 95 Chevy, but it was actually off of a Ford. So I guess they used a Ford snout on there and then put Ford rotors on it. But I got the other side apart. We're going to address this situation. So you can see it's all pulled out. So it's a 4-wheel drive hub, but it's obviously not 4-wheel drive, so it doesn't really matter. We just don't have anything to go into the locking hub mechanism on there. And really the only reason why we need this is to be able to bolt a cap onto it. I could probably make a cap that fits that. It kind of just snaps in there. But that's not the issue. The issue is all this little mess over here. So got these 2 plates on here, and this caliper was sitting in between there, and they kind of made it like a full floater, but this is not a full floater. This is a 4-pin caliper. It needs to be solid mounted. And you see this one was out quite a bit, so it wasn't centered. So really all I need to do is, well, might have to weld that up a little bit. It's kind of chewed away. But basically what I'm going to do is probably make some spacers to go in here, and then just tighten this all up and make sure that it's centered, and then you don't have a full floater anymore. So not sure what they were doing on that deal. It's kind of weird. But yeah, they took some snouts. What was that, 6-bolt snout off of a Ford, I guess, when they made these. Pretty beefy looking. They're nice. Except for this whole little gizmo here. We'll get her fixed up. Alright, so I got the rotor separated on this old school stuff. This is a 95 Ford F350 rotor and hub because of the knuckle that they made. They had to have a bolt-on snout. And back in the day, I guess the Fords bolted them on like that, so that's why they used that. The caliper setup is just absolutely atrocious. So they have a big old huge gap, and everything is so loose and wobbly. So this is supposed to be a fixed caliper. It's a 4-piston caliper, so it's supposed to go on there tight and fixed to where it doesn't move, and then the pads move in and out. So I mean, they didn't put any spacers in between there or anything. This thing was just able to flop around, so I have to fix all that. It's absolutely atrocious. And I found a rotor that's just slightly bigger. This is offset in it is about 3 inches, and this one about 2 3/4. And I use this one just because it's a little bit bigger. So this is a 13-inch rotor, and this one over here is 12.5, so 1/2 inch more meat. So, you know, a little bit better braking, and it's off of a slightly newer, but everything else is going to fit. So I think it's going to work out great. So these old school hubs, basically you had to press the look at this mess. You had to press these out. So the wheel studs actually hold the rotor in there. So the new ones, the studs get pressed in, and then the rotor slides on from the front. This one actually goes on from the back. So, hold please. So, see, that sits on there in the back, and then this goes down in there, and then you press it in, and that sandwiches all this together. These are 1/2 inch studs because it's off of a 95, and of course the rear end is stock, and those are 14mm studs. So you have to have 2 different sets of studs for this, or lug nuts for this thing. I was trying to find some studs that I could actually switch to 14, but the problem is where the knurl is at. See, the knurl is way up here because it slips through the rotor first, and then the knurling catches down underneath there on the hub. Whereas the new stuff presses into the hub first, and then the rotor actually fits on from the backside. So I couldn't find a 14 millimeter stud that had knurling on the outside. They all had it on the inside. And that wouldn't work because it would just press through there, but then the hub would be loose. So we're kind of stuck with running 1/2 inch on front and 14 millimeter on the back. But that's okay. So this one is slightly different offset, like I said, it's 3 inches, so it's only a 1/4 inch difference. But I'm gonna have to remake all of this anyway, because this is just garbage. It's way too thin. And so I'm gonna cut all of that off, then put the new rotor on there. I got to get new pads coming in because these are all bubbly. And you see the gigantic grooves that are in this rotor, so I need new pads. So when the new pads get in, then I could stick it in the caliper and then press the brakes and have it center itself, because you can see right here. See, this one's almost out all the way to where it's going to start leaking, and this one's barely out at all. So that's because this was able to full float. So I'm going to center the pads, tighten them up, get it in the middle, put it on the rotor, figure out where I'm going to put the brackets at, make some, weld them on there, and that's the proper way to do it. That fit pretty good. Went on there nice and easy. We got tons of room back here, and the caliper almost fits, but I mean the brackets are all wrong and stuff. But what I need to do now is center this thing up exactly, which is pretty easy, and then build some brackets down in there. I'm going to cut these little cheesy ones off. You can see there's a huge gap between, you know, where the ear is on this and where that metal is right there. So I'm going to make a super thick bracket over here and then just drill it and thread it, and then I can put a bolt in there, and then this will be nice and tight. So that's pretty easy. And the drama continues. So I chucked them up in the lathe and had just a tiny bit of roughness right here and a little edge. So I was just gonna put some emery cloth on there and then clean all this up. So when I spun it around, you could see how much that part's moving. So apparently this guy was jumping the thing and bent the whole end of the snout right here. And then I had to figure out, well, what the heck did this come off of? 6-bolt. So I called Yukon Axles. Very knowledgeable gentleman over there. Walked me through it, and we found this is off of actually a bunch of different vehicles, but it's a Dana 44 stub off of a Chevy. So I don't know. I thought this was, well, when I looked up, this was definitely Ford, but I guess it could also be Chevy. I seem to remember having Chevy had some of these on there, which doesn't really matter. So the hub that I thought was Ford may not be Ford. Spindles, or the rotors that I found, were off of a Ford, and they fit absolutely perfect. So absolutely no gap. I went to AutoZone and we looked up some Chevy ones, and the Chevy hole was actually bigger. So I think it's Ford hubs on a Chevy spindle on an aftermarket setup. MMW, which is Michigan Motor Works. I looked on their website and I couldn't find any Prerunner type stuff. They do a lot of lowriders and street trucks, so I don't know what all this crap is off of. But I'm figuring it out, and get her going. So I'm going to cut these off, which obviously are not going to work. So they have gigantic lugs on here, but the bracket literally goes right to the edge of the hole. So they're not utilizing this whole lug. And obviously you could see where that one is just completely gone through and wallowed out. So these have to go, cutting those off, grind them all down. But now I can't do any other work until I get the spindles to get the rotor set on there straight. Right now the rotor's crooked. I don't want to build my brackets to crooked rotors. So yeah, we'll get it fixed up. All right, so exciting, an unboxing video, huh? Normally I think those are kind of stupid, but I'm excited to see what we got going on here. We actually shipped them out pretty quick. Yukon helped me a lot on figuring out what this thing actually takes in here. Oh, the packaging is nice. Wow, that's good stuff. All right, got some seals and a very well wrapped spindle in here. A very unsharpened Milwaukee blade here. Now you could tell it's a nice product because of the way they pack it in there. I'm not seeing that from China. All right. Well, that looks like the right one. See if the nut fits. Oh yeah. All right, well that definitely looks like the right one. Nut fits perfect. Oh yeah, like a glove. That's perfect. So those guys helped me out a lot. They spent a lot of time with me on the phone trying to figure out exactly what this was, which is off of a early model Chevy. It's basically like a Dana 44, but it's a heavier duty one because this inner race was 1.6 and this one was 2-inch. And the hub, like I said before, that's off of a Ford because this rotor I looked up for a Chevy and the hole was bigger. It fits down in here. So this actually was off of a 2000, which is just a little bit bigger, which will be good and get just a little bit more brakes. But now that I have all that, I can cut these stupid brackets off of here and start mocking everything up, put the right spindle on there that's not bent. So if I would have... All right, working on the brakes today. Got the proper spindle put on. 79 Chevy Blazer spindle with a 95 Ford F350 hub and a 2000 F350 rotor. Nice. So I got the old brackets cut off. Those were super easy because they were only welded on one side. So I scored them with the grinder and hit them with a hammer and they popped right off. So freaking shady. So I made these two thicker brackets. Nice 3/8 chunks of steel. And those are going to go on basically right about there. So we're going to weld those on there. Probably just going to put a little tack on there for now. And then when I put the rotor up here, I could figure out exactly how much clearance I need. It's actually a really, really tight fit between getting all of my pad contact, because on this one, it didn't get the whole way. You can kind of see that edge right there was sticking out. So I didn't get full engagement on these pads, but it's really tight between full engagement and then the rotor actually hitting right there. So I'm going to put this piece on. You can see I have a little line already marked in there. Just tack that on, try and get it nice and straight. Then I'll put my rotor up there, the caliper, and basically I'll probably put something, a little shim stock in here just to get the right distance. It's only like, man, it's maybe 1/8 of an inch, if less. But I'll suck it up on there and then I'll mark the holes. And then I'm going to drill and tap this, which is plenty thick enough to hold that caliper on there. And, oi, that will be nice. So you can see it's already pretty well centered on there. The way it is right now, it's kind of nice. But yeah, these are fixed calipers. So that plate is going to weld on there and these aren't going to move. So that's what we're doing now. Piece of cake. Get all that done up real nice. We got brakes. Everything is on there nicely. She spins up pretty good. Pretty centered. What I did was put a big old fatty in there. Basically, I just made some 3/8 brackets for it and tapped them 20 or 1/2 inch 20. So fine thread. Nice thick meaty little brackets. And then I reamed out the hole to 1/2 inch because these holes right here were kind of wallered out anyway, so made them next size bigger. So those grade 8 1/2 inch bolts are going to be nice and strong. So yeah, I'm super stoked on how that turned out. It doesn't move around anymore. Huh, imagine that. All I could do is do the other side. When a man's life is in your hands, this is the kind of work that you do right there. Oh yeah, nice big fatty. She's all welded up. Now I'm working on the passenger side. I was gonna kind of button up the driver's side, and I started cleaning the bearings and just kind of looking at those a little bit. Obviously got all this part done, the bracket and all that. And when I started cleaning the bearings, the bearing didn't look too bad, but then I looked at the race, and if you could see the chunks in there, the inner race is completely destroyed. It's horrible. The outer one wasn't too shabby. The bearings actually look pretty good. Usually the bearings will have a bunch of pits in them also. So anyway, I had to figure out what bearings go on here. And like I talked about before, this is just a hodgepodge of different parts that they threw together on this thing. I thought the hub was a 95 Ford F350, but that didn't fit. So this is basically a Dana 44 stub off of a Dana 44 axle, but it's the bigger snout. They have a couple different sizes. So this is a 1.6, and then this was the 2-inch. So there was no numbers off of the old bearings, which I don't know if you can kind of see. There's numbers on there. So that's a piece of cake. You just take them off and look at them and order some new ones. But there was no bearing numbers. Luckily, there was numbers on the races right there. So I was able to get on the old interweb there and do some cross-referencing on what bearings go with that, with the particular snout size. And then I went to my local AutoZone and got some bearings for it. So I think we're good now. Everything is pretty much new. Calipers are old, but the pads are new, and this is all new. I just cut off the brackets on this side. Look at these atrocious things. So this was the bracket on there. Wallered out. It's oval instead of round. That's what the caliper was riding on. bouncing back and forth on those things. So I got my rotor, starting to put that together. You have to press these studs in from the backside on this older stuff. So you sandwich the rotor in between the hub and the lug nuts, or the studs. Put those all in with the good old snap-on air hammer. They're powder coated black. Make it kind of nice. Stuck it on my lathe and just ground down some of the casting so it's a little bit smoother. Trying to make this thing kind of clean. So I'll put the rotor on. I have my other bracket. I made both of those exactly the same on the mill. Drilled and tapped those. So those will bolt right on there. So I'll bolt this on first, put the new pads in, slap this all together, and that will pretty much automatically put this where it belongs. And I'll tack weld it, take it all apart, make sure it's straight, and then buzz it in like I did the other side. I was super pleased with the way this turned out. Really nice weld. Good penetration on there. So that's what's in store. We'll get that done. All right, so got the rotor on there. Got that all ground out, nice and clean. So a little tech tip, a little pro tip for you. When you're welding, it's really important where you put the ground. I could have grounded over here, the paint's all off of it. Now the ground has to go through these bolts up here. So there could be rubber bushings in there. Also has to go through the uniball here, which a lot of those uniballs actually have nylon in them. So it's not going to make a real good contact, and it may actually kind of melt it. So you want to get as close to what you're welding as you can. So I just knocked a little paint off there because those are going to get powder coated anyway. And I put my ground right on there, and that's going to be super nice for welding. This is where people get in trouble with computers. If I just stick my lead somewhere on a ground, and the ground may actually have to go through the computer, then that's when they get fried. So a lot of people will disconnect the grounds to be safe. But if you get as close as you can to what you're welding, that's really the right way to do it. So I got my plate stuck on here, and got my new pads in here. So literally, because I made these both at the same time, this plate is already perfect. It's already spaced out the right amount. All I have to do is really center. You can see the line on the caliper there. I just got to center that up, and then up and down. You know, if I get too low, it's going to rub on the top. So just have to center it up and down, side to side. I'll put one little tack on the top and then kind of square everything up, but pretty easy. All right, that's what I'm talking about, bro. So got that. There we go. It's weird. The camera makes it look weird. You got to get it just the right spot. So that's a tiny, tiny bit off-centered, but definitely not bad because there's a lot of throw on here. So this spins nice and freely, doesn't rub on the top. And then I got one little tacky tack right there. So all I have to do is take all this apart. I'm going to make sure that that block in there is square. So I'll show you that. All right, so I could see it's off just a teeny bit. I put this block in here. See, just a tiny bit of an angle, and then it's pretty much flush here, and then down here is just a little edge. So all I have to do is just bend this in and then pull this part out. That should be pretty simple. Alrighty. So that pretty much spot on, and then nice and flush there, all the way down, flush. That's a Dean right there, baby. Look at that, perfect. So now I'm gonna take the rotor off. I could buzz it down here at the bottom and then do my welds on there. And this side is done. So brakes are pretty much done. Look how nice that spins now. So new rotors, got it all straightened out, new bearings, new stubs on there. Nice thick plate bolted on now. I'll put some Loctite and washer on there when it's finally finished. This hose is going to have to be replaced. There's a little kink in it. So I don't know why they made that so close to make such a tight. When you turn it going right, it's going to be really close in there. So might have to figure out how something do that a little bit cleaner. Yeah, this is just mock-up. Everything's got to be pulled back apart. Like I said, this has to be powder coated and that has to be powder coated. Not sure exactly when I want to do that. Right now, this is back to a roller. I can throw the tires on it and get it out of here if I need to work on something else. So I may just leave that for a while. But both sides are done. Super stoked. It doesn't turn because brake pad's rubbing, but it can go in quite a ways. It's nice and straight. Can you see that from there? Perfect. Loving it. Got to keep my buddy safe. That concludes part 1 of this build, the 06 Prerunner. Engine is at the machine shop. They're checking things out. Parts are coming in. Got some fab work done, obviously. And we're going to keep working on it. So stay tuned for part 2. Hope you can join us.